Robert Sims may have just become one of the most dangerous people in Silo 18, and the crazy part is that almost nobody realizes what he's actually doing. For years, Robert was exactly the kind of man the system needed. He was ruthless, disciplined, intimidating, and willing to carry out orders without asking whether those orders were morally right. If Judicial needed someone silenced, Robert could do it. If IT needed fear enforced, he understood how to make people afraid. But Season 3 has completely changed him, because Robert is now doing something far more dangerous than openly rebelling against the system. He's pretending to obey it. While Camille Sims rises to head of IT and increasingly places her faith in the vault and its algorithm, Robert has quietly begun dismantling its plans from inside. Bernard Holland should be dead. Juliette Nichols should be vulnerable enough to eliminate. Her memories should remain suppressed, and every threat identified by the algorithm should eventually disappear. Instead, Robert appears to be sabotaging every one of those outcomes. And what makes his strategy brilliant is that he may have discovered the algorithm's greatest weakness. It can analyze what people do, calculate probabilities, and predict likely behavior, but it cannot perfectly understand why a human being is doing something. That distinction changes everything. So before we break this down, here's the situation. Camille believes the survival of Silo 18 requires absolute obedience to the algorithm. Robert increasingly believes protecting his family and possibly the entire silo requires deceiving it. That leads him to fake Bernard's death, politically protect Juliette, manipulate her medical treatment through Nurse Amy, and eventually interfere when Camille decides Juliette has become too dangerous. And Robert is doing all of this while making his own wife believe he is still on her side. The first major clue comes with Bernard Holland. Bernard has gone from being one of the most powerful men in Silo 18 to becoming a liability the algorithm wants removed. Alongside Juliette and Lucas Kyle, Bernard possesses knowledge capable of destabilizing the carefully constructed reality of the silo. And with the safeguard hanging over everything, Camille isn't interested in taking chances. From her perspective, this isn't personal, it's arithmetic. If Bernard represents an unacceptable probability of catastrophe, remove Bernard. And she gives Robert the job. Robert enters the medical unit and appears ready to become the executioner we already know he can be. Bernard is vulnerable. Robert places the plastic over his head, and for a moment, the scene seems horrifyingly straightforward. This is Robert Sims doing what Robert Sims does. Except he isn't. Robert secretly creates an opening in the plastic that allows Bernard to breathe. Suddenly, what looks like an execution becomes theater. And this is where Robert's plan becomes much bigger than simply sparing Bernard's life. Keeping Bernard alive isn't enough. Bernard has to become dead as far as the system is concerned. Robert therefore needs to create two different realities simultaneously. There is the reality Camille and the algorithm can observe, where Bernard Holland has been successfully eliminated. Then there's the real world, where Bernard is still breathing. With help from Martha Walker and Carla in supply, Robert manages to move Bernard away from the system's eyes and into one of the most important locations in this entire conflict, the Digger Void. Think about how significant that is. Silo 18 is a surveillance state. Cameras, records, medical systems, and institutional reporting allow the algorithm to construct an enormous model of what is happening inside the silo. But the Digger Void exists outside that vision. Once Bernard enters that blind spot, he effectively disappears from the algorithm's reality. Then comes the dangerous part. Robert lies to Camille. He tells his wife Bernard is dead and maintains the controlled expression she expects from him. Camille sees the obedient husband. The system sees the dependable enforcer. The expected task appears completed. But Robert knows the truth, and that exposes a fascinating vulnerability in the algorithm. An algorithm can process observable behavior. It can compare patterns. It can calculate probabilities based on enormous quantities of information. But human deception introduces something messy into that equation: intent. Robert can perform loyalty while practicing rebellion, and if he can consistently give the algorithm the behavior it expects to see, he can potentially manipulate the conclusions it reaches. But saving Bernard is only the beginning, because Robert does something even smarter with Juliet. He doesn't simply hide her, he makes killing her politically dangerous. Juliet has already become a symbol inside Silo 18. Her return from outside fundamentally challenges everything people were taught to believe. She survived something that should have killed her, and whether she wants the responsibility or not, people now see meaning in her survival. Robert recognizes the opportunity. Instead of allowing Juliet to remain an isolated troublemaker who can quietly disappear, he encourages public admiration for her. He helps transform Juliet from a target into a political figure and begins pushing the possibility of her becoming mayor. That completely changes the calculation. If Juliet is just another citizen, IT can remove her. If Juliet becomes someone thousands of people openly support, removing her becomes explosive. Imagine Juliet suddenly dying immediately after becoming the face of hope inside the silo. People would ask questions. Mechanical would react. The Down Deep could erupt. Rumors would spread faster than IT could control them. And suddenly, killing one perceived threat could create hundreds more. Robert understands that the algorithm's obsession with stability can be turned against it. The system wants Juliet gone because she threatens order. Robert makes her so publicly important that killing her could threaten order even more. That is an incredibly clever trap. But there's still another problem.
Juliet's body may be alive, yet her memories are failing her. The D+ medication becomes crucial here because suppressing memory is another method of control. A population that cannot fully retain forbidden truths is easier to manage. And for Juliet specifically, memory loss prevents her from connecting the clues she desperately needs. Robert attacks this system quietly. This time, his weapon is Nurse Amy. Amy's connection to Juliet's father gives Robert someone inside the medical structure capable of changing Juliet's treatment without immediately exposing the manipulation. Under Robert's instructions, Amy stops giving Juliet the memory-suppressing medication while keeping the official records looking normal. And notice the pattern. Robert isn't smashing the system, he's feeding it false information. Bernard's records say the threat is dead. Juliet's medical records say treatment is continuing. Robert's behavior tells Camille he remains loyal. Everything the algorithm receives appears reassuring, while reality underneath those reports is moving in the opposite direction. Robert isn't trying to overpower the machine. He's corrupting its inputs, and that might be the smartest possible way to fight something built around prediction. Then Camille finally reaches the point Robert has been trying to prevent. Juliet's behavior becomes impossible to ignore. She's searching for answers. She's investigating Lucas Kyle. She's chasing fragments of memories and following questions that could lead directly into the secrets IT has spent generations protecting. The surveillance system notices. Red flags begin accumulating, and Camille decides intervention is necessary. This is where Robert's entire double life is placed at risk, because Camille isn't simply Robert's superior, she's his wife. The person Robert is deceiving every day is someone who knows him intimately. If he pushes too aggressively against her decision, Camille could finally understand what he's doing. So when she prepares to deal with Juliet, Robert doesn't protest, he volunteers. "I'll take care of her." That's exactly what Camille expects to hear from the old Robert Sims. And once again, Robert weaponizes his reputation. Camille believes she's sending her enforcer. Juliet is actually receiving an ally. Robert tracks her to pump room 76, but instead of killing her, he does something that completely exposes what his real objective has become. He helps her. He protects Juliet from the approaching IT sweeps and gives her objects capable of unlocking pieces of the life being erased from her mind, including the Pez dispenser and George Wilkins' old watch. These aren't random relics, they're emotional anchors. Robert understands that Juliet doesn't simply need information, she needs connections strong enough to break through the fog surrounding her memories. George's watch isn't merely evidence, it's George. It's love, loss, guilt, and history condensed into something Juliet can physically hold. And once those memories begin returning, the algorithm has another problem. Juliet Nichols is becoming herself again. Robert then helps push her toward mechanical, buying her time while maintaining the illusion that he has handled the problem. And this is why Robert's Season 3 transformation matters so much. He's becoming the opposite of what he once represented. Robert used to be frightening because he understood how power worked inside Silo 18. Now, that same knowledge makes him frightening to the people running it. He knows how judicial operates. He knows how surveillance works. He knows what Camille expects from him. He understands how fear controls people and how official records manufacture reality. Most importantly, Robert understands how to look obedient. That makes him uniquely suited to fighting the algorithm. Juliet rebels visibly. Bernard possesses forbidden knowledge. Mechanical can resist physically. Robert does something different. He lies. He creates fake deaths, false medical records, political complications, and carefully staged performances of loyalty. Instead of behaving unpredictably all the time, he gives the algorithm exactly the predictable Robert Sims it expects to see, and then quietly does the opposite. But there's one enormous danger here. The longer Robert plays this game, the more inconsistencies the algorithm may eventually detect. Bernard cannot remain a ghost forever. Juliet cannot keep surviving impossible situations without someone noticing a pattern. Nurse Amy's falsified treatment records could be discovered, and Camille knows Robert better than almost anyone else. Eventually, one mistake could connect everything. And when Camille realizes her husband hasn't merely disobeyed one command, but has been systematically manipulating her entire information network, their conflict stops being political. It becomes deeply personal. That may be where Silo Season 3 is ultimately taking Robert Sims, not toward becoming the hero everyone can see, but toward becoming the invisible saboteur the algorithm never properly accounted for. Because the great irony is that the system spent years turning Robert into the perfect enforcer. It taught him secrecy. It taught him intimidation. It taught him how to manipulate information. It taught him how to make people disappear. And now, Robert is using every lesson the system gave him against the system itself. The algorithm can calculate probabilities. It can watch cameras. It can analyze patterns. It can tell Camille exactly which people statistically threaten the survival of Silo 18. But Robert Sims had discovered something it may never fully understand. A man can look you directly in the eyes, behave exactly as predicted, tell you exactly what you expect to hear, and still be lying. And if the algorithm cannot reliably distinguish obedience from performance, then Robert hasn't simply found a way to protect Juliet and Bernard. He may have found the flaw that can bring the entire system down.